All right. Hey everyone. All right. This is actually an interesting topic. I've mentioned briefly in the past in previous videos and stuff like that, and it's something that it keeps coming up. The topic keeps coming up, and I have a pretty strong opinion on this, just just with my experience with game design over the last, I don't know, 20 years. I don't I think that there are a lot of benefits to blockchain gaming, but really it's just a different way to do a lot of the same stuff in terms of gaming. In terms of social media, I think it's objectively just superior, but in terms of gaming, there's some aspects to it that is still a bit up in the air. The benefits of blockchain gaming is kind of niche in my opinion because you can't you have to trust a third party, which kind of defeats the point, but maybe there's still a reason to do it, blah blah blah, right? In my opinion, in practice, well, okay, so there's two different mindsets regarding this topic. There's the idealistic mindset. Well, if I own the token on my wallet, then that means I have full ownership of it and blah blah blah, right? And but then there's the down to earth, feet on the ground, objective realism that if the item can be removed from the game at any moment because okay, let's say I'm working on a game and I say that you know what? I don't like this one particular item. So I can nerf the shit out of it. I can I can just remove it from the game entirely. Um, Three, you have to trust that I'm going to make the correct decisions. So this is a big difference between something like owning a Bitcoin. When you own a Bitcoin, you own a Bitcoin, right? Maybe there's a bear or a bull market, maybe there's, you know what I mean, but you own it. But when it comes to video game items, you have to understand that you already own all of the items in most of the games you play outside of blockchain gaming. I own my World of Warcraft gold, right? But it can be taken away from me at any moment. But that's just it. In a smart contract environment, I can take away anything. You might still have a reference to a token on your wallet, but I can remove the fucking thing from the game entirely, and I can also make it so that unless somebody else decides to, out of the kindness of their heart, which is not going to happen, um, take your iron swords and add them into their game, it's never gonna happen. I mean it might. I see benefits in having like cross pollination when it comes to tokenized ownership of items and stuff like that. But in reality, you it's really pretty much the same thing in practice. It's not this one particular aspect of blockchain gaming is not really all that different. Um, I I'm the one who's creating the smart contract. I'm the one who's determining how to balance the game. The game will always be changing. There will always be new additions. Even a new addition can in some ways make an item that you own right now worthless because there might just be a better item that's easier to get. And that is just the nature of the beast. That is how this always works. And it's always worked this way before, too. So, you're not going, in this one respect, ownership of items is not going into some new paradigm when it comes to crypto. Um, People, hardcore, professional World of Warcraft players have numerous times spent hundreds and hundreds of hours gearing and leveling a character just so that they can get that 5% extra damage boost on a raid boss that they absolutely needed. And that 5% could be taken away from them at any moment by a balance change, making the entire endeavor completely a waste of time. And it's happened countless times. And it's just part of the medium. It's just how gaming works. It's how anytime you do anything. So it's like, so this is a discussion. It keeps coming up, and I don't think that it's a good idea to advertise to outsiders of the crypto space that ownership is significantly different than ownership of items in a traditional game. I think that in practice, not technically, you own the tokens. Those tokens do belong to you. Nobody can take them away. Nobody can force you to sell them. Okay? You do own the tokens, but the tokens are being extrapolated onto a smart contract which can change at any moment. Thus, I don't think it's any different than traditional gaming, where is no blockchain on this one respect. I think there are differences, and maybe that is a good thing to bring up. Maybe, like, because I want players to have like enough ownership of the items, and it's a permissionless environment. Like for the game that I'm doing right now, I want to be able to have players like I want players to be able to buy and sell items that they have in the game, right? But I'm still going to have soul binding mechanisms. I'm still going to have durability on all of the items so that they have limited use. I'm still going to do a lot of stuff that, you know, the items are never going to last forever. There's always going to be some kind of a point in time where they break or you have to repair them, which then lowers their maximum durability. Like, the way I'm designing the RPG that I'm currently working on right now, it's more about having a player-driven economy than it is about giving people, a guarantee that that iron sword they have is always going to be theirs. That is, to me, that doesn't even hold any value, because to me that's garbage. Like, it's not going to be fun. There's going to be a zillion iron swords eventually because they never break. Like, give me a break, man. Like, there's no point in trying to sell this aspect to outsiders. They already have it as good as it gets when it comes to CS:GO weapon skins. It's already, like a CS:GO skin, fucking knife skin. People were selling Fallout 76 weapons that were generated out of thin air for, $20 for fucking, like, an explosive Gatling laser or something like that, right? They were selling these damn things on eBay. All right, they already have pretty much the same ownership. The difference with crypto is that it makes it a little, it's permissionless, and it ends up kind of being, it's a bit more liquid in terms of like how money, how things can change hands. But ultimately speaking, yeah, like with the game I'm working on right now, like one of the main profit models is that every time a player sells an item to another player, I get a 5% cut of all the profits. So, I mean, when you're in this environment, it's pretty much just auction house fees. I mean, in World of Warcraft, you pay a 5%, you know, gold fee when you use the auction house as well. It's just something that's always been there. So whenever I see people, they talk about like, well, let's see, games in specific genre or similar can never have 100% ownership, which I think is just unfair given that there are many companies working on doing just that. They're all wrong. Period. Anyone who thinks otherwise is either blowing smoke up your ass, or they're going to learn the hard way that they're just being dumb. Like, okay, maybe if it's a card game, because card games kind of already had to work this way, but guess what? Whenever a card in a card game got a little bit too powerful, you know what they do? They remove it from tournaments. But it's still something that people like to have. Okay, well, sure. You know what? You go. But in the digital age, in the digital world, having spending $1,000 to get a fucking, two-hand axe for my level 5,000 warrior that, you know what I mean? Like, I can get wrecked as fuck at a single moment's notice. That's why I don't recommend players sink that much money into a single item. In fact, I'm going to warn people. I'm going to be like, hey, like, I know you probably want to spend, $1,000 on this thing, but, keep in mind, there's just going to be a disclaimer that's always going to be there. Everything is always subject to change. Okay? So, like, while you might own that, you might own the token that's involved with that two-hand axe. If I find out that people are doing like weird haste builds that I wasn't ever prepared with a combination of different abilities, and they can like two-shot a fucking, a god fucking tier or like end boss, then I hate to inform you, but your two-hand axe is gonna get hit with a fucking Nerf bat. There's gonna have to be changes to the game, right? Anyone who thinks otherwise is lying to you. That is not you. Just allowing something like that is game breaking, and it's garbage. It ruins the game long term. The game I personally making, blah 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 blah. All right, the issue I have with such generalist statement, it's not a generalist statement. It is just how this shit works. There is not there's nothing generalized about it. It just, taking these types of, for example, skins and cosmetic, purely decorative, yes, and also purely on the client. I'm not storing the actual, I'm not storing the skin on the blockchain. I mean, I might be storing it on an IPFS, but I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to have you download a client, and depending on, people can modify the skin to do whatever, to look different if they feel like it. Like, but that's just it, though. Like, which is actually really interesting to me too, because coming into this discussion, I'm also of the mind that a game has to be 100% on chain, in order for, or at least it has to be mostly on chain. Like, there has to be some kind of a method where if it's not fully on chain, then maybe you're using some kind of side chain or something along those lines. The game has to, if the game's not trustless, then you really, like, you're losing the advantages. You might as, it's just completely at that point not even close to being a taking advantage of the medium, right? I want to try and set up a 100% on-chain, game. Like, I don't want to mess around with this idea of going hybrid, unless somebody starts throwing lots of money at me to develop something like that. But from a purely idealistic standpoint, and in practice, I just don't see a reason to want to go that route. Like, it's pointless to me. But maybe it's wrong. Maybe what I'm trying to do is just going to be too flawed, because it's going to be too slow, or maybe it's just not going to be fun. It's going to take too long to do things and stuff like that. Well, those are the kinds of things that I'm going to have to like mess around with. But I want to at least try, right? Purely decorative stuff is stored on the client. So when you download the client, in order to be able to, talk to the blockchain and gather up the information, display it all in a cognizant way, so people can actually understand what's going on with the game. Those items can be the token for the item can look a certain way, but I mean, at any point in time, a dev can update the skin so that it looks better, or make it, update it so that it looks worse. I've seen, it's pretty much the same shit as before. There's always what is it, gold, gems, non-stat based quantifiables. Yes, and I'll tell you right now, those golds, those gems, those non-stat based quantifiables, I can modify a crafting recipe, and that's going to have an effect on those items too. Okay, so at least with golden gems, there's it's closer to how crypto actually works, right? Because I'm not swinging golden gems and utilizing damage formulas, right? And at any moment though, but you still have to you still have to trust the game developer that they're not going to remove those golden gems from the game, which is probably unlikely, right? But you still have to trust. Do you understand? It's not trustless if you have to trust somebody. And in this particular case, you still have to trust that I, as the developer, won't do something, remove it from the game entirely. I can just take it out of the game. And then at that point, you're sitting there with your dick in your hands wondering, well, maybe some other developer will let me use it. It never happened. Look, it's unlikely that that scenario will actually occur, but it can. Do you understand? So this concept, this idealism, it's yeah, whatever. It's pretty much the same shit. Your World of Warcraft gold, in practice, pretty much the same. Okay. Single use items and event tickets, same thing as above. Like, I can nerf what you get for using them. I can make it so that you can't use them anymore. I can do anything. Like, I control the game. I'm the developer. Like, it's and you and like I said, it's unlikely that'll happen, but it can. Do you see where this is going now? Okay, it's pretty much the same thing if you want to play World of Warcraft, if you want to play, Final Fantasy 14. You're pretty much in the same territory on this shit. I mean, sure, maybe with crypto, you own those tokens, bro, but those tokens can be removed from the game at any moment. It's unlikely, but it can. All right, so then you look at the other side of the thing: weapons, armors, craftables, things that are not as individuals. Sometimes I think a little bit like maybe this is just sort of idealism, sort of coming through, and not really actual understanding of like game development or anything like that. I will assure whoever's watching this video, anyone with an iota of experience actually working on games will probably pretty much tell you the same shit. Okay, look, just having a token in existence. I mean, anyone can create a token at any moment and put it on the blockchain. But like how that token interfaces with the game and, and the way game development actually works, it's unlikely that your two-hand axe that's worth $1,000 is going to get nerfed into the ground, but it can. You're not in a trustless environment. It's just as trust you have to trust the devs just as much as you had to trust Blizzard. You have to trust, Square Enix. You have to trust the devs. Okay, and there's nothing you can do to escape this. There's nothing you can do to escape this. Now, so whenever I see people talking about like, oh, you can have actual ownership of these blah blah blah, they're fucking with you. They're thinking about this shit from like a Bitcoin perspective, right? Like once you own your Bitcoin, you own that Bitcoin. It's true in the case of Bitcoin. When you have a Bitcoin, you have a Bitcoin. If you have a Dogecoin, you have a Dogecoin. All right. But in the terms of smart contracts, you're pretty much you're still following the same rules as every other thing that's already existed for 30, 40 years now. I don't know, like every piece of software that has rules and usage and development, and people have to make changes to it, and there's patches and there's updates and there's DLC and there's fucking all that stuff. Well, it's going to be a constantly changing modified thing, and you have to trust the devs. It's not going to be true 100% ownership, not in any way that's different from what we've already experienced with other games. So that actually brings in uh, my final point on this. There's a lot of bullshit in this space, And when it comes to cryptocurrency, there's a ton of bullshit. And one of the main things that has to happen is we need to start cutting through this bullshit, and I think that it's absolutely necessary. There has to be more hard-headed people with actual on the ground, this is, understanding of how things actually work, calling out crap like this as often as possible, because people are going to actually get wrecked in this space. So once we start dealing with cryptocurrency based gaming, one of the main things I'm going to do is I'm going to be talking to people, I'm going to be warning them, this is not the same thing in terms of like the value of the items and stuff like that. The game is immediately like designed to be straight up black market. It is just a black market, right? I guess if it's straight up, it's not really a black market, but there's some really interesting and different territory that's being treaded here in terms of like how free the market actually is. There are some differences that are worth bringing up. There's liquidity. You could run outside of the city walls and kill a monster and get an item that's actually worth like $10. You don't know. Like you can also buy a bunch of gear from the auction house and then find out like a day later that there's a patch, that makes most of those items a lot weaker because they were too good or something like that. So you can get wrecked pretty hard. Like it's a bit different. It's something. It feels new to me, but at the same time, it just feels more honest, because if you really think about it, it's what we've already been doing anyway, but it's just more straightforward. It's like you're cutting out the middleman. You know what I mean? Which I think is the entire one of the main points of this entire space. So anyway, with all that said, like I'd like to hear what people have to say about this, but um, I really don't believe that we should be telling people that the ownership of a blockchain based game is going to be, in practice, any different than ownership of items in traditional games. We can pick tens of thousands, hundreds of other reasons stuff that I haven't even thought of yet, like to say to people outside of the space that things are going to be different this time, guys. That's what this that's what this is really about. Let's just not do this one. What the ownership thing is a meme. It's not actually true in practice. It's roughly the same as it's always been. There's no escaping this. There's no but. There's no, just stop it. Just stop. Just let it go. it's we're we're never escaping it. Okay. There's always going to be balance changes. There's always going to be a need to trust the developers that they're not going to wreck you like hard, and it's going to happen. Like I can guarantee you right fucking now. If a game, like if I release the game that I'm working on, like let's say it's fully out and everything, there's gonna be a point in time where there's a patch that nerfs something that people freak out about, and then they start making YouTube videos about how the game is dying, and they're really, it's going to happen. It happens every fucking game ever. All of them. I have never not seen this. Okay, you will always get at least one super hardcore salty player who freaks out over something. It's unfucking voidable, and it's just part of the territory, and this is not going to change that. Okay, don't try to tell those people that this is going to be an escape, because it's not. It will not do that. Anyway, all right, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to end it now. So